refamiliarizing and introducing, because I appreciate that Commissioner Menza and Commissioner Mea are new, and that this is a good opportunity. I have worked on some project kind of activities with Commissioner Menzer, and we've had a little bit of opportunity to talk about Pack Mountain, but probably not at the sort of the structural and what it is, what it does level. We usually just jump right into the project stuff. And so getting a little bit of context, I think, will be helpful. And I am scheduled, Commissioner Mea. Am I saying your name correctly, ma'am?
Mejia.
That's Mejia.
Yes. Thank you. Commissioner, we have been trying to find time, because as the appointee to the consortium, you will have some specific duties and activities that I will want to get you prepped for, and we're on your calendar, and we'll get to that. So I think this will be just a tiny overview of that, and we'll go much deeper when we get time to be in kind of a one-on-one session.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Before I go too much further, I wanted to acknowledge my colleague, my board member, my dear friend, and the person who taught me that it was okay to talk about love in the context of work, and that is Mr. Michael Cade. Michael has been a member of the Workforce Development Council since he came to Thurston County. So he was a member of the board predating me. And so we had a lot to learn. I had a lot to learn from Michael as I entered this work. And one of the things that I learned, which is it's complete demonstration of the fact that it is Michael and I that are here, and that Jenica Machado, who used to be at Pack Mountain, moved into this world of economic development. And so it just helps to illustrate.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you owe me. And we talked about this, Romero. We talked about this. Yeah, so just a quick heads up on that, Michael, if Romero comes to you and says, we've got this great position, I'm searching for someone, but could you put somebody on an interview panel to help? Say no, because it's likely that the individual who's on the interview panel, who's completely brilliant and amazing and wonderful, gets snatched up by the county's manager. So be careful of that. But the connection between workforce development and economic development, Michael and I like to talk about it as the two sides of one coin. And it's not always been understood in that way. Often there's a separation, and we begin to think about the economy and business separate from the worker, the workforce. And the importance of that opportunity for an individual or a group of individuals to find prosperity. We separate those, and they are interlinked. And so that's why I'm going to spend a little bit of time with, I started with this, what Michael Cade taught me about love. Well, this is the month of love, February, right? It is Valentine's Day. And most people get really confused about love. There are 8, maybe even 9 Greek definitions of love. And the definition that I like to think about in this work is agape, which has to do with the interconnectedness of all beings, all essences in our universe, right? And so that interconnectedness and that search for deep empathy, deep compassion, and universal kindness, and that universality, whether that's prosperity or love, that's why, Michael Cade, we can talk about love in not only the month of February, but always in this, because there is deep interconnectedness there. Workforce councils represent that. We are some of the original collective impact agencies. We're called out in federal law. The councils are called workforce development boards in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that was signed by President Obama in 2014. That act is the continuation of many acts and many generations of commitment that this country has made to workers and to businesses. And in the early days, this idea got separated. And in later acts, we came to understand that they had to be connected. And one of the ways that businesses and labor come together is in how you develop the workforce, why you develop the workforce. And so we needed a construct to make sure that we had all of that brilliance to bring to the possibilities of prosperity for workers and for business. So councils were created to source from local areas the business and the care for the individuals that are in a region. We are a 5-county region. We are one of the largest regions other than what they call balance of the state. And so there are 12 of us, workforce councils across the state. And the balance of the state one is the tiniest out of all in terms of money and population. And it is the counties on the east side from Canada to Oregon, outside of Benton Franklin sort of area. There are 11 of 9 of those counties. It donut holes Spokane, right? So those are 9 counties, a lot of territory, not a lot of people. Pac Mountain is the second geographically largest and county-wide because we have 5 counties. Those are Thurston, Lewis, Mason, Grays Harbor, and Pacific County. And then we were designated as a region, Pac Mountain region, generations ago. I don't know, three CEOs ago, right? In federal law. So we find ourselves able to work together really well because we've been functioning and working towards that functioning together for quite some time. Our EDC directors, our 5 EDC directors, the library district, same 5 counties, right? The ESD 113, predominantly Pac Mountain, little teeny bit of 114 and 112 in some of our outlying county areas, but mostly ESD 113, Educational Service District 113. Choice Regional Health has us 5 plus 2 more, right? So there's lots of ways that we have interconnected with one another. Our economies, the fact that our labor force travels around, the fact that we have some similarities. And I'm going to walk through in a minute the major sectors that drive our 5 counties and how important it is for us to understand those sectors and then to figure out how we lever and leverage all of our work to get to the success of those sectors. But councils have this ability from a collective impact standpoint because there are 26 members of our board that the consortium, so commissioners, the consortium is made up of 1 commissioner from each of our 5 counties. And they establish the consortium vis-a-vis an interlocal agreement that says, this is how we're going to work. This is our responsibility, which is primarily to oversee the operations of the council and to, at the highest level, agree that the work that the councils are doing across this state are in fact responding to what the needs are in our local area. The consortium is the governor's peer in the workforce world, and I say that all the time as a way to bolster our local elected officials, because while the governor approves lots of things and the money flows through his operations, it is to my local elected officials that I am accountable, and all of the board members that sit on my board are appointed by this group of elected officials that say, yes, these individuals will be able to represent the needs of this region. So that's a little bit of a structural overview, taking about 15 minutes of that time. And I want to both take a breath and see if there's a question that might come up about the structural pieces, because I'm going to get into some of the work we do and some of the specific impacts around COVID in the next part of the presentation. Question, wondering?
Anything from the crew? Jenica, you too? You probably know all this stuff.
Nothing for me, sir.
Okay, we're good.
Great. So I think I'm able to share my screen. May I?
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
Great. I hope what you're seeing, I hope what you're seeing here is the regional impact report. Is that 2020 calendar year? Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Great. Yay. All right. So what I like about this this next page is that in a snapshot and in some pictograms, you see the essence of the Workforce Council's work, right? We serve job seekers. We serve those individuals that have been displaced, right? And they are, in many respects, the heart of what is a dual mandate. The law's dual mandate says business and job seekers, which is why our collective impact efforts must move forward around that. Both job seekers and businesses, and I'm going to show you at the end because we spend a lot more time on business when we get through sectors, but they are a focal point. And most people know the work of a council through WorkSource, right? And WorkSource is the place. And it's also, it has a virtual presence. And in the pandemic, that has been critical. The ability to come in through WorkSource WA and to deliver resources, information for the job seeker during this period of time. So it's a place, which is a brick, and we have those bricks in 4 different places in this 5-county region. It's a click. You can get to us through worksourcewa.gov, and it's partnerships. And that's to me, is the heart of what WorkSource is. It is about how agencies and projects and activities come together in a one-stop place to serve the needs of business and of job seekers. So we serve youth in our youth programs. We serve job seekers in all of our programs larger. We are specifically focused on dislocated workers, and an illustration of our commitment to high barrier populations. Pac Mountain has one of the most pronounced and demonstrable commitments to the highest barriered individuals in our state who are seeking employment, who need to improve their life circumstances through work, right? We have lots of partners in DSHS and in DVR who are doing some other kinds of things around helping those individuals who are searching to build their own prosperity. We're doing it through the world of work. And I'm going to tell you about some of the projects that have intermingled the importance of paying attention to the highest barriers and the struggles that so many people are having during the pandemic, and the commitment to getting people back to work. But veterans are one of those 14, right? And we have recently completed and are continuing a presence at Joint Base Lewis McChord, because that's an amazing workforce that's out there. Michael was part of the original writing of a grant many, many years ago called Heroes at Home, which started with spouses. And then we moved to Camera to Commerce, which was about transitioning military during the pull down of military forces and sending them into the economy. We didn't need that to happen coming out of the recession to put more people who didn't know what they were going to do with their lives and their ability to get to prosperity. So we built a grant that ended up being about 5 years and close to $13 million worth of investment to serve those individuals that were coming there and their families. So spouses were also included in that. Okay, so we story tell a lot, and I would encourage you to go to our website. It has tons of information on what we're doing, but the impact stories are really, really important to having people understand the why. What does it matter? And so increasingly, I'm asking our designers and even our staff to remind yourselves of what the why is, and that's often told through these kinds of stories. So there's a story there. So remember, I talked to you about business and the business impact because of our dual mandate. There's all of our work is, most of our work is contracted out, and our contractor in this region for business services is Thurston Chamber. Now, some people are like, now how is Thurston out serving in Grays Harbor? It's because David Shepard's crew have, for the last, we typically bid that every 3 years, have put together the strongest response to what our needs are in delivering business services. And they have done a phenomenal job in providing those kinds of services to our businesses. Those kinds of services are found at WorkSource. They're found when we meet with businesses. They're found in the multiple requests for technical assistance, in how do I do a workforce plan? What do I need to do in terms of my classifications, because I can't find people? Well, maybe you're not paying them well enough, or maybe you're misstating what's actually needed in that job description. So our contract staff through the chamber provide services to business. So what businesses are we trying to focus on? We are trying to focus on the businesses that give us the greatest ability to leverage success. And we, in 2012, just as I arrived here, I've been here since 2012 as the CEO, Pack Mountain finalized and we called it an industry and occupation study in 2012, and we identified 6 critical sectors. We did an update recently, very recently in 19, and we confirmed that in December. Jenica was actually my staff person that worked with Jason Robertson, which is how she got known. So there's another tip or clue, Michael. We need to be careful about how that happens when you get close to the county. So they get the opportunity, businesses get the opportunity to see themselves in our economy and in our work through this study. It's found on our website. Let me see. Well, I won't pull it up. I had it set up because I could share my screen, but you could go to the website and under regional sectors, and you go down almost to the end of the page and you will see that study that was conducted by Jason Robertson. You also know him in the work that's being done with Thurston Strong. And it's another example. I sit on that group. My staff work very closely with Thurston Strong to make sure that we're bringing the workforce thinking to the table as business is trying to get back on its feet and as the economy is trying to get going. So in 19, we adopted again these 6 sectors food production, wood products and paper manufacturing, healthcare, specialty manufacturing and logistics, IT and telecom, hospitality and tourism. And so if you ever want to make Jason's day, you should call him and ask him to do a presentation on any one of these. He can bring you bubble charts, he can bring you graphs, he can bring you all kinds of information, sliced and diced however you want with Thurston County around these sectors. He's also done that for our other 4 counties. We have a labor market analyst who had worked with Jason on this. He gets to spread across. Jason gets to go deeper into some of these things. And he's been remarkable to work with. And it's so important for councils to have data, to be able to do our work and to understand just that, like, we've got limited money, so where do we target it? What's important? What's turning? So we adopted this in 19, right? And Jason went around to all the counties, presented all of that. And then, lo and behold, in February, Mother Nature, the universal gods, whatever you want to say, sent a virus. And so I'm not sure what this is going to look like now. Michael probably has a better sense of that. What we've been talking about is wherever we land, it's likely to have some semblance of it. It's probably not the these, it's the how of those, right? And so we know, for instance, the impact that the pandemic has had on small businesses, on Main Street, who may be in one of these sectors, right? And so what are we going to do about something like entrepreneurship? Cuts across all of these sectors, right? You can find entrepreneurs in all of these sectors. And so that's something that we need to be thinking about and focusing on in the years and months to come, months and years to come, is how do we surgically pay attention to things? And it's hard in the midst of a crisis to do that, but we're trying. So here's our our deliverable on businesses. We provided over 3,600 services to businesses in the year 2020. And I know that, and I'm assured of that, because the Thurston Chamber provides great statistics for us on their interactions with businesses. And just think, I mean, we don't have to teach them anything about those businesses, right? That is their world. That is what they do. Okay, so I want to get into a little bit about Thurston County and what happened in during the pandemic. Now, you have seen much of this, or the theme of it, in presentations that Michael and or Jason has done with Thurston Strong. Jenica's a strong member participant in that group, so she's probably also shared these, and she may have had the most recent of those of these kinds of charts shared out as a document that we use as our kind of an annual impact report. It's going to lag. It's going to be a little bit dated, right? With the most updated information is probably what Jenica or Jason can provide to you. But this is more giving you a sense of it, right? So these are unduplicated unemployment continued claims. And where are they? You know, where are these jobs? Where are these people that have lost their jobs and are continuing their employment, unemployment claim, right? They're in, just everybody in this country is accommodation and food service, retail trade, very dramatically hit. And this is where, in our concern and our thinking about the job seeker, I look right here and I know who's in these jobs, right? They're typically folks that are some of the lowest paid. They tend to be many of our Black and brown workers. They tend to be younger workers who are just trying to get their careers started, right? And so right here is where our commitments around equity, right? We know this is what's happening in the business world, but I know how it's impacting groups of people. And that's a great concern. So what are we going to do about that from the equity lens? Healthcare, social assistance, construction, government administration. That's government got hit in the same way as many of the other sectors. And as Michael has mentioned, many government jobs, often people get skilled up. Maybe you're in Department of Natural Resources as a biologist, and you're going to later join the private sector, or maybe you're going to go on and start your own business. So you see how that sector can help feed into a bunch of other sectors. The reverse can also be true. Certainly people come out of those sectors and go into them. But more often, in my understanding, in my experience, it goes the other way. Unemployment and employment, you see the charts, you've seen them, really horrible set of circumstances coming in February, right? And so that's when the unemployment dove. I was going to say dip, but dove. And then here you go with this is where employment dipped, and this is where unemployment skyrocketed. We're now back much closer to where we, when we started in January, from out of what we call the really hot labor market, couldn't find people. And we're now still, there are businesses that are saying they can't find people for different reasons, right? There are a lot of different reasons now, but there's still businesses that are looking for folks, and there are still folks that are trying to get hooked back up into the labor force. So a little bit of factoids. These are the fun things that allow me to be a little bit more distracted during my presentation. And when I ask the staff to, think about what some of these factoids are, to try and build in a little bit of, these interesting tidbits that might tell some of our, speak to some of our commitment. So over 30,000 people in Thurston County speak a language other than English at home, right? So again, another data point that helps me to understand why I might need to be thinking about issues of equity and how to make sure that our services are in fact serving all does mean all. How do we do that? The Asian and Pacific Islander language. Data, the great thing about data is it always kind of makes me go, tip my head. And sometimes it's because I don't understand it, but sometimes it's like, wonder why that's so. And that gives us an opportunity to think more deeply about not only that data point, but what we're going to do to act on it. Thurston County, as of 2020, unemployment rates among workers earning less than $27,000 decreased by 10%. Employment rates among workers earning less than decreased by 10%. That's a lot of people who were barely making it, the working poor, the Alice demographic, right? The asset limited, income constrained employed. And that employment is continuing to dip. And those are people that we're caring deeply about, and why you're seeing in all of the other work that you as a commission do. Housing assistance had a great call with Chris Wells yesterday in talking about food security, because we launched a project in food security. Ours had to do with farmers, and we worked with Michael's staff, with the Northwest Food Hub, with WSU to get food to people, but also to teach them things about what to do with that food. And this is how workforce development connects with some of the basics. When I was talking to Chris yesterday, we're The councils are moving to a place with CARES money that the governor has put into the Department of Commerce for food security. And so we'll be working with food banks, we'll be working with nutrition, senior nutrition, food programs, and deploying those services and possibilities out to the region vis-a-vis jobs. So we're attending to the need for food, but we're trying to provide people jobs at that same time. Delivery drivers, IT folks that are able to inventory the materials, people who are able to schedule these massive food drives, which when the pandemic happened, the food banks lost a lot of that. Nobody was doing that. So trying to be creative with the food banks. And we'll be working, my next conversation will be with all of the food bank managers and all of their contractors. Like, what do you need? How can we help from a staffing standpoint? Because that's what we do. Let's see here. These are just Pat Mountain stats. So remember, you're 1 of 5. Because you're the largest, you definitely sway these numbers. But it's not always so. So you see a little bit of difference. Accommodation and food services still at the top of the list, but you saw healthcare move from position 2 here, we're position 2, and it was position 3 in your group. But construction still shows itself. Retail trade goes down a little bit because proportionally, Thurston County is a much more diversified economy. So these are our stats. Veterans, we've got large proportionality of veterans here. Lacey, large number of folks where we had a big push when we did County Commerce, trying to get people out into the rural areas. And so you see in Pack Mountain, large proportionality of veterans, larger than the state and double what's in the national population. Shellfish farming for our region is huge. Agriculture, aquaculture, fish and fin, shellfish, fin fish, all of that is captured here. And I think that's a wonderful, it's wonderful for us to be able to talk about food, which is such an important piece of, I think, what our recovery and resiliency needs to be, that we've got shellfish and fin fish here, as well as, lots of chickens, lots of land that is in, and that could be put to even greater use in the development of food. So I'll take another breath, and then I want to just tell you a little bit about who serves on the Workforce Council. Okay. Question?
Questions from anyone? Looking carefully.
No, sir.
Meryl, anything? Robin? Jennifer?
No, I don't have anything.
No, this is good. I hadn't seen some of this newest unemployment. We were tracking it early on very carefully, and it's good to see some of this more up-to-date data.
So as I mentioned, the council is a construct called out in federal law. The dictates of it are you have a local elected official group called CLEOs, Chief Local Elected Officials, and the workforce council members who are appointed by that group of CLEOs. Because we're a 5-county area, we source that talent, those brainiacs, from all of those 5 counties. I am pleased to be able to talk about my board, because I have a very engaged, compassionate, and knowledgeable board. And so that is hugely represented by the officers who sit there. And so Jacqueline Early, this is year 2. She was incoming 2 years ago. Dwayne Evans, who was with Fort Blakely, has retired. And when he left, just before he left, Jacqueline became chair. She was the chair through the pandemic, and is the chair continuing. Michael Cade is our new vice chair. The vice chair was previously held by Jim Minkler, who was the Grace Harbor College president, and Michael Cade has been recently elected by his peers to be our vice chair. I talked about Jacqueline having been the incoming. This year's incoming is Alyssa Shea from the Port of Grace Harbor. And we're delighted with Alyssa's willingness and commitment here. Both Jacqueline and Alyssa are, they represent an age demographic. Sorry, Michael, I know that you're younger than me. And these folks are younger than you. And it's really important that we begin building that middle bench. And now we've built the bench, and now they're coming to the forefront. So appreciate Jacqueline and Alyssa Shea in that. Our consortium chair, that's the 5-county elected official, is Commissioner Lisa Olson from out of Pacific County. She was last year's chair. She is the voice, and she writes as the person signing, right, for the CLEOs. Our Secretary Treasurer is Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers is a former commissioner from out of Pacific County. He is head of the Historical Society, retired teacher. And so he brings a lot of wisdom from a variety of different areas. Here's our list. Everyone, each commission gets to select 3 private sector business enterprise individuals to serve on the council. And so in Thurston County, Michael and David, you have a recently appointed individual in Angela White, and I don't see her. She may still sit as a nominee and not have been confirmed yet. But Angela White from OMB, Olympia Master Builders, is your 3rd person. So I'll see what happened there on that. Here's the visual of our 5 counties. I'll just end by saying we're a huge territory. We've got huge heart in the work that we do at the council in partnership with our economic development partners and in concert with all of the human services folks that come together in this collective impact wraparound of both businesses and job seekers to try and put them on that path to prosperity. So with that, I will stop sharing and take your questions, hear your wonderings, explore a little bit about what you might be thinking about as we come into year 2 of a, hopefully on the backside of this epidemic and this pandemic. So thank you for letting me take up your morning.
Thank you, Cheryl. Commissioner Edwards is online, and
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning. Good presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards and I share the great, formerly my hometown of Yelm, right? He knows I'm a Yelm High School graduate. We try not to brag on that too much, but deep roots out in that territory and strong, enduring commitment to our rural areas. It's been one of the things that I know Michael, not just because of me, but probably Aslan Mead is figured, that was steady, that group, the South Thurston County group around economic development, just so critical that we make sure that those partnerships are paying attention to, sometimes the voices are harder to hear, they're scattered, We certainly find that when we're working with job seekers, because literally we're looking for them in the woods often. It's particularly true with kids these days, as we're trying to find how are we going to serve you if you're not in school and you were probably on the edge of getting either pushed out or moved out or wanting to be out anyway. And now, and we need you to get skills, young person. We need you to get ready. And we're here to help, but it's hard to get that message to them when you can't find it. So good morning, Commissioner Edwards.
Hey, Cheryl, I can make one comment
Yes.
on communications with those folks in rural America. We're getting a new cell tower that's going to be online here pretty quick. They've got it up, and I don't think it's hooked in yet, but that's been a 4-year fight to have that actually come online to serve the rural community.
Right. Yeah. That is so important in the same way that electricity was in the Great Depression. We need to come out of this, the horribleness that was this pandemic, with that intentional commitment to broadband and rural broadband in particular, because we're leaving way too many people off. And then we get to step in. You do the infrastructure parts, and then we'll step in and help school people up in how to use those computers and hopefully get them into jobs where they can afford to buy the numerous computers that are going to be needed, because sharing a computer in a household with a teenager is really not doable, right? So how do we provide for that? And those are the kinds of things that the council is dedicated to, and it's a good example of why we need partnerships.
Cheryl, can you talk about so you have a consortium, and I assume that's where Commissioner Mejia would be representing, and can you talk about that versus the board, like what kinds of issues?
Yes. So the consortium operates at the highest level. They have really 4 duties. They approve the budget. They appoint the people who oversee the work. They review and approve the strategic plan. And that's a strategic plan that's called out. The timing of it's called out in law, which is every 2 years you have to do an update, and then they come out usually and say every 4 years you got to do a major overhaul. We're caught in a situation where we were supposed to have done that in 2020. We take our guidance from the state. We're a little delayed. We, meaning the state and U.S. Department of Labor, has agreed that they will stay that basically for a period of time. But that strategic plan, and the 4th thing is my connection. They are, I have a direct connect to that. So in the hire of a new CEO, in the discipline of a CEO, in the review of a CEO. So there's really 4 duties. The vast majority of all of the work around governance is done through those individuals that they appoint. Does that?
Yeah, no, that gives me a good sense of it. Anybody else have a question or comment, please? Yeah.
I have no questions. I'll be meeting Cheryl soon, so.
I don't think I totally understood your kind of the origin that you described at the beginning in terms of the different, how it's laid out across the state and coming from those. Was it, you said in 2014, it was a Obama initiative that created these councils?
Well, the councils actually existed. They were created in WIA, which was the prior law, and that was done in '98. Prior to that, they were the PIC councils, right? The private industry councils. You might have remembered that. And that was in JTPA, the Joint Training Partnership Act. And so that was done in the late 80s through the late 90s was JTPA. And so the picks have always been, the private industry council, a focus on business. But remember what I was saying is that we had this division between job seeker and jobs. It's really illustrated in what happened in JTPA, Job Training Partnership Act. And those were federal acts. Before that, it was CETA. Some people may have even been CETA workers, right? The Comprehensive Employment Training Act. And before that, it was manpower. But this goes all the way. I mean, this is federal legislation that really is evolving. I think definitely getting better. So when we have said create these councils in '98, that happened. We created one-stop work sources during that time. And then when President Obama signed WIOA in 14, we had evolved, and now the legislation was able to capture a much smarter way to do this collective impact work.
Great. Michael, do you have anything you want to throw in? It's lucky to have you here today. We've got about 10 minutes.
Yeah, actually, no, the only thing I would add is what was a seminal moment in my life with workforce was when we started looking at that Pac Mountain did the analysis of our clusters, of our economic clusters. And so how I just want to relate to you how I take that information is our work is wrapped completely around that data analysis in the workforce piece. When you think about, when I come to you and I talk about the entrepreneurial ecosystem, it's steeped in that data. When I talk about the agriculture business park in Tenino, the genesis of that is that workforce analysis that was done. When I start talking about the growth of the Lacey maker space and the notion that small businesses will come together to start doing prototyping, we take advantage of the data that says we will be successful because of this information. So we steep our relationship and our work program around the notion of what Pac Mountain sets the pace and the course for us. We take that and implement it for job creation and job expansion. But I don't want to make it sound like we're getting ahead of Pac Mountain or the workforce, because we're not. We are working step by step by step with them. But that's the critical piece in the relationship that we have. The other thing that I would kind of mention when Commissioner Edwards was talking and Cheryl were talking about the rural counties and steady. Cheryl, a couple of years ago, I don't know if we did it this year, but Pac Mountain made available small grants for competitiveness in the rural communities. And we were joyfully helpful in securing and promoting several grants in the steady communities. The roof organization in Rochester, the Tenino School District, and I think Rainier School District also got a grant from that. And there was one other one. And the notion was that how youth got paired up with emerging industries. My organization, we stepped aside from that, kind of got those groups together, and our work was done, but they did the real lifting of that. That was a really cool thing. Cheryl talks about, she kind of talked about love. That's where the love is, man. We share that love with those organizations and those communities. It's a really cool thing. So that's the only thing I would say is that it's a really intricate dance that goes on here. And when you kind of look back from 50,000 square feet, 50,000 foot elevation, and you start seeing that ballroom dance that is so cool that creates this tapestry of economic development. But when you get down below, there's those steps that need to be taken to make that dance. So that's the only thing I would say. So.
Great, thank you, Ramiro.
Yeah, following up to just what Michael stated, and there's many, first of all, I appreciate the partnership with the Pac Mountain. And just for the benefit of the viewing public, this afternoon I'm going to be having a meeting with one of your staff, Lauren Robbins, to see how we can partner with Pac Mountain to see how we can extend the resource hub related to Justice Involved initiative the county is moving forward. So that really expands the nexus and the synergies that perhaps we could partner with Pac Mountain. So from my point of view, I really appreciate your leadership, always your commitment to reach out, always your commitment to go the extra mile to provide services to our community. And I'm so looking forward to have a meeting this afternoon just to see how we can further partner on this, what I believe this new area that is going to be pivotal as to how Thurston County moves in innovative justice.
Yes, let me just echo enthusiasm around that. I mentioned high barrier populations, and the 14 of them are called out in federal law. Pac Mountain has the board identified from that 14. We pay attention to all of them. We prioritize all of them, but we get select amounts of money and we go after select amounts of money. And re-entry work is one of the top 3 of those high barrier. So because people coming out of justice involvement, they and then their families, it is very challenging for them often to get onto that path to prosperity. And so whatever we can do from the standpoint of workforce development, we want to be able to remove those barriers, mitigate those barriers. It's why we have a 3-year current contract with juvenile rehabilitation doing a program called My Journey Out Beyond, my job. And my job is trying to prep these young people to get into the job market. I've said it multiple times, this is not about a bleeding heart activity. We will need those young people to be in the labor force capable, right? And so that's a focus for us. And we think that the work that we've done with the county for almost going more on to 25 years, I think we've held a PREP contract, which is the pre-employment training preparation program, serving people in the Thurston County Jail. We have great familiarity with that work. We did it in Lewis County with the opioid impacted work, and it's individuals who are impacted by opioids, that project. And so I think that there are multiple ways, Romero, that we're going to be able to bring some wisdom, some resource, some I think some creativity to what the county wants to do with this, and we'll see how all the pieces fit.
Thank you.
The Law and Justice Council had a presentation from the State Public Policy WSIP, or I forget the exact acronym, but one of the neutral public policy analytic groups, and they presented on analysis they did of dozens of criminal justice related policy strategies and tried to calculate the actual return on investment for the dollars in terms of actual recidivism and people not. And reentry programs scored super high. If it wasn't the top, it was top 3 out of dozens and dozens of program types. So I really appreciate the focus on that. Okay, great. Well, we're about out of time, and commissioners will be on a different Zoom at 10 a.m. I'd like to thank you, Cheryl and Michael, and we really appreciate this check-in.
Thank you. Please let me know if there's anything more that you need. And commissioners, I'm looking forward to the year and to more conversation as this year unfolds. So,
we'll get reports from from Commissioner Mejia about what's going on. So
yes, Commissioner, I'm on your calendar, and we'll have a great conversation then.
Mm-hmm.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Goodbye.